see what the future holds for children's TV. But this month's in-depth report is on the subject of sport. In a minute, you can see what happened in our studio discussion. But first, a bit of background on a subject guaranteed to get most people hot under the collar. The reporter is Fiona Rumbold.
There's been sport on TV almost as long as there's been TV. Back in 1948, when the Olympics came to London, there was one TV channel, and colour TV hadn't even been invented. But things are very different now. At least television's in lifelike colour. But does TV sport reflect the real world? Take Two has had hundreds of letters from people who think that it doesn't. What about karate? There's far too much football.
But I haven't got a satellite dish.
Baseball!
It's all too commercial.
There's never enough kids playing.
It's nearly all men's sports.
Serious charges indeed. But we'll start with the most serious. Why isn't there any netball on television? The first witness for the defence is John Rowlandson, Deputy Head of BBC Sport, and I went to see him at Television Centre.
Well, we do some netball. Last autumn we did the matches against the West Indies when they were here. And we're also, this year, we're going to do the test matches when New Zealand are the visitors. It isn't possible to do every minority sport and please everybody all the time.
I wasn't really satisfied with that. There are over 1 million people who play netball in this country, but there's none on TV. So does the answer lie up there? I play netball, as do over 1 million school children in this country. How come there's so little netball on television?
Good point. Very good point. There was here, we've done it. We were at the World Championships last year in Australia, and we'd like to be at the World Championships in 3 years' time. The problem we've got is we're very young. We've been on the air less than a year as a sports channel. We are trying to build a fairly strong base around what you would perhaps term as the popular sports. That's where we're going to get an audience. That's the business we're in at the moment. We have to go. In time, maybe there's something that we can do about that. But it's not something that I would be able to say is on the table immediately.
But it's not just netball. Lots of sports seem to be missing from TV's menu. The Central Council of Physical Recreation represents the governing bodies of most British sports.
The trouble with sport, most people perceive it as being football, horse racing and a bit of cricket. They don't realise that there's an enormous range of different sporting activities that you could do well at if only you knew about them. Netball is, and hockey, Wembley Hockey Internationals, I mean, they're great television anyway, and there should be, I think, rather more imagination given by the TV producers to this kind of widening spread of coverage, but unfortunately they're all a bit worried about their positions, and they all stick to old favourites, knowing that they've got a guaranteed number of viewers, and they'll keep their jobs.
The TV companies say this isn't true. According to them, we're spoilt for choice.
I think we do about 42 sports on the line.
Minority sports get more coverage on Channel 4. They brought us American football and sumo. But will the other companies follow their lead?
I actually don't like to use that phrase, minority sport. You start to categorise and pigeonhole things, and I think that's wrong. If it's good and it's strong, it should have airtime and space on its own merits. Now, WWF is a wonderful example, again, of a suggestion that we had from a viewer. What we have here is a vehicle that allows us the opportunity to try out sports like that, to put them in the shop window and see what sort of reaction we get.
Sports like WWF wrestling have shown just how commercialised TV sport now is. But is it right that sports that children watch, like motor racing and snooker, should be sponsored by cigarette companies?
In this respect, the BBC doesn't make the rules, that Parliament does. And it's very hard for the BBC to stand alone and say to the people who like watching rugby league, for instance, or snooker, sorry, we can't show you this because of the tobacco sponsorship.
Television needs sport, and sport now needs television. And people might not like that, but it's a fact of life.
Thanks for that report, Fiona. Did you feel that you got answers to all your questions?
Yeah, it was very interesting. There are a lot of varied points of view, but I'd still like to know why there aren't lots more different sports shown on TV.
Well, in search of more answers, our studio audience put their questions to Helen Rollerson, former Newsround presenter, turned Sport on Friday and Winter Olympics anchorwoman, and to Gary Lovejoy, head of sport at TVS. He was senior producer of ITV's highly acclaimed Rugby World Cup coverage and used to be a rugby commentator for TSW.
I think there's too much sport.
Do you think that television is in a state now where it's showing sponsored sport, or is television being sponsored to show sport?
I think one of the delightful things about the Winter Olympics over the last 2 weeks has been that there was no sponsorship. You didn't see adverts all over the place.
I don't think the advertising really influences you that much because it's been there so long. You just don't tend to not notice it, and if we didn't have the sponsorship, then the sport programmes wouldn't get as enough coverage because they wouldn't have the money.
I'd like to see more women's sports, including women playing football and rugby.
I find usually women play a different sort of game, use different tactics, and they're usually a whole lot more interesting.
Now I would like to...
It's not even shown on TV, it's a fast, highly competitive sport now.
I do believe that a lot of you would like to see a sports programme that you can call your own. And I think it's up to the head of children's and the head of youth to try and look at something like the English Schools Athletics Championships. And
Helen's already mentioned this, but I feel that there should be some coverage of children's championships because it shows people what sort of standard children can reach. And also it's a chance to spot young talent.
The sports are all out there. The children have all got the sports that we want, or that they want us to show. You have to create the slot, because I think to just scatter old bits of netball, disabled sport, squash and badminton around the schedules willy-nilly is going to do nobody any good whatsoever.
Thanks to panellists Helen and Gary, and to our audience for all of your views as well. Next month we'll be discussing the future of children's TV in general. Are you getting the programmes you want? Are satellite TV and videos drawing you away from BBC and ITV children's programmes? And what programmes would you make for children if you were the boss of one of the new ITV companies? Write and tell us, and who knows, you could be presenting